Okay, so how does it feel to play with Blur again?
Well, it's been a very interesting experience, actually. You know, we weren't sure. We had a sort of vague plan to do this, and I've had a vague plan to do this for some years now. But things kept getting in the way, of course, not least being the pandemic, the worldwide pandemic. And so it wasn't clear, really, even by this time last year, I think, whether this year was going to happen. Because it's very difficult to put on big gigs at the moment. You know, there's not many venues, and there's lots of bands wanting to play them. So it had been put back 2 years, and it looked like it was going to be put back a third. And then all of a sudden, we were granted a special date at Wembley Stadium. And I got this kind of panicked phone call from my agent, who said it's going to happen, but they were going to put the tickets on sale on Friday, you know, and it was Tuesday. So we had to do a kind of panicky round of interviews in the UK, putting the tickets on sale, and then we thought, well, what are we going to do? We're going to make a new record. By the time we put the tour together, it was January. That's not really enough time to make a new record, because it would have had to be finished and delivered by May. So we thought, well, that's not really enough time. But anyway, we thought we'd give it a go, and luckily we did manage to get it done, and I think it's one of our best. So things kind of came together very quickly and at the last minute, really.
You were saying that you were tired. I can imagine that you are, probably because we're not that young anymore. Yeah?
Well, speak for yourself. I am getting younger every day.
But probably when you're up on stage and you're besides the drums, it's probably a big energy, even if we're not that young anymore.
Yeah, the when you make music, the magic takes over and everything gets washed away. Yeah, it's quite beautiful.
Yeah, and you were saying that the new record, it's one of your best. I think that too. You know, so it's a thoughtful album. So how has it been, all this process?
It was actually a very, very nice process to make it. We didn't have much time, so there wasn't really enough time to go, oh, I don't know, should we do it this way? I don't know. We just had to get on and do it and take decisions and just try stuff. And it was like one of those magical times, really, like when you're playing tennis, and it seems like the racket is huge and the ball's coming slowly and you just whack it and every shot goes in. It kind of felt like that, really. Everything we tried kind of worked, and we had James Ford producing, who was just really, really good at stepping back when he needed to, or kind of nudging things if they were heading off in the wrong direction. So yeah, it was just a really nice process. We ended up we ended up doing a lot more, recording a lot more music than we needed. We probably could have released 2 albums, actually, the amount of music that we made. So, it's like the stars aligned. Those things don't happen very often. Mostly making the album is the work part, it's the business part of the music business. So, it can be like quite a grind, but this just felt really natural, very relaxed, very happy. I think that comes across in the music. The music's got lots of space, but still there's lots of instruments and lots of kind of melodies weaving in and out,
Favorite song of this album?
Oh, I don't know. My favourite song is the last one we played. Well, the last one we played in Soundcheck was Barbaric, so that's my favourite song at the moment.
Yeah.
They're all nice to play.
What about favorite song of to play in? I like this song. We're playing song, a new song. What about and your favorite song to play, an old song, from the old albums?
Yeah. Well, there's a song called Explain that we haven't played for decades. So at Soundchecks, I keep saying, anybody fancy playing Explain? Nobody ever says yes. But I would really like to play that. So there was some talk that maybe on the last show of this tour we would each get to pick our favourite and play it. So if that comes true, then mine will be Explain.
Oh, okay. So I heard radio songs this morning.
Oh yes.
Yeah, your solo album. I liked it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good album,
Thank you very much.
and you have such a wonderful voice.
Well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you to say. You can stay.
So, how was working on this solo album?
It was a lot of fun, actually. It was a lot of fun. I didn't, it was the first album where I've sung the lead vocal, and I didn't know if my voice was going to be able to support it. So I was quite happy that it could. It was interesting in playing. I played a few solo shows in the UK as well, and that was really good fun. So it's something I'll do again, definitely. I think I'll write another album next year and see if I can release that next year as well.
What about writing songs with Damon in Blur?
Yeah, what about it? That's a good question.
What about writing with them?
Well, Damon's the songwriter in Blur. We early on in our careers with Blur, we figured out what our roles were, and there's been little kind of pressure to change that, really, because we've found a way of working that works really well. So I'm not keen to. I'm not launching a bid to take over the songwriting for Blur or anything.
But maybe you could write one song and say, well, do you want to include this song in the next album? Maybe.
It's possible. But I'm not. Blur works really well the way it is.
Yeah.
I'm not keen to rock the boat particularly. It's. I'm a real admirer of Damon's songwriting. It's quite a privilege to be able to play on music that he's written, I think. So I'm not keen to. I'm confident enough and settled enough in myself and in my own abilities not to be kind of going, oh, and I want this and I want that and I want.
Yeah. Yeah. What about other drummers that you admire?
Well, I grew up listening to. My dad was a sound engineer at the BBC, and his record collection was a lot of jazz. So I grew up listening to a lot of quite obscure jazz drummers, really, names that really aren't known these days, like Kenny Clare, who were kind of session jazz players in the 1930s and 1940s. When jazz was a huge, big, exciting new medium. So I grew up listening to all of those kind of players. I was then and am now just kind of bowled over by their fluency with the instrument. So I think I always thought that that's where I would end up. Whatever happened with Blur, I would end up playing jazz, and I think I still may. But there just aren't enough hours in the day.
Yeah.
I've got so many projects on the go, and we all have. We're all kind of crazily motivated people.
Have you seen Whiplash, the movie?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. That album is that soundtrack is such a good soundtrack.
Yeah, I was underwhelmed by Whiplash, the movie, I have to say. I mean, it was fairly obvious that he wasn't playing the drums, and it was sold to me as the guy, the actor, had learned to play the drums and played the drums in the film. And then I watched it, it's like, from the word go, it's like, he's not playing the drums. So I was a bit disappointed. Yeah. And I thought, actually, he probably did a good job for convincing somebody who doesn't play the drums that and it takes a lifetime to master an instrument. So I don't know why I was expecting this guy to just kind of to achieve the impossible. I have to say I was a bit underwhelmed by it.
Yeah, it is overwhelming. At what age did you learn to play the drums?
I started at aged 11.
Yeah.
So I started playing the piano at about 5 or 6, and then moved on to the drums at about aged 11.
Okay. So what album did you buy? What was your last album that you bought? The last question.
Oh, God knows. See, I'm not a big album buyer anymore.
What was the last album
that? I don't have an album collection, unfortunately.
Okay. So what was the last album that you loved?
God, so difficult.
That's okay. Don't worry.
So difficult.
Don't worry.
The
Ballad of Darren.
I just get him. Music's so accessible these days with Spotify and YouTube. You know, exploring music is like exploring a city these days. Often you don't even know what you're listening to. You know, you're following links and following recommendations. It is like being sort of blindfolded in a strange city, hoping you don't get run over, and just kind of finding your way around. You know, so consuming music has changed an awful lot, I think. So really these days I very rarely sit down and listen to an album, and I think I'm actually doing it the way most people do it now.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you very much. Thank you.
My pleasure.